Seeing as I am a horror geek, I might as well make a contribution to this here reading event known as Horror Mayhem, which was created by the Bookish Bryants to honor the memory of the late Scott Bryant. The Vault of Horror was the second of two anthology films produced by the Amicus Production Company, adapting yarns from the infamous EC horror comics of the early 1950s, Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and The Haunt of Fear. While the first film, Tales from the Crypt, drew from all three comics, this second entry consists almost entirely of stories taken from the pages of Tales from the Crypt. The one exception being the second segment, The Neat Job, which is from Shock Suspense Stories. As much fun as I think it would have been for me to do a page-to-screen, back-to-page review of The Vault of Horror, I cannot, because at time of recording, I do not have access to the comic book source material for the film. I only have access to the film and its novelization, which was written by Jack Oleck. That name should be familiar to comic book aficionados, as Oleck wrote for EC Comics back in the 1950s. He was one of the main writers for crime suspense stories, as well as a contributor to both The Vault of Horror and Weird Science Fantasy, which was a combination of two separate lines, Weird Science and Weird Fantasy. Go figure. After the Comics Code caused something of an industry collapse, Oleck took a decade-long sabbatical from comic book script writing, during which he published and edited the magazine Interior Decorator News, and he also wrote two evidently lurid and pulpy novels set in ancient Rome, Messalina, which appears to have been a bestseller, and Theodora. Oleck returned to comic script writing in the late 60s, working for DC on a variety of horror lines, but he continued to pen the occasional novel. Prior to being hired to write the novelizations for both Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror, he wrote a novel about 1950s era beatniks titled The Villagers. Following the novelizations were two anthology books featuring prose adaptations of stories from DC's The House of Mystery, to which Oleck just so happened to be a contributor. In addition to The House of Mystery, Oleck supplied yarns for titles such as Forbidden Tales of Dark Mansion, The House of Secrets, Tales of Ghost Castle, Weird War Tales, and Weird Mystery Tales. So there is a better than average chance I read something written by Jack Oleck during my childhood in the so-called Bronze Age of the comic book industry. Oleck passed away in 1981 at the age of 67. Now, I have no idea how amused or apathetic Oleck might have been over being hired to write novelizations of film adaptations of stories from comic books he had toiled on 20 years previous. Since this was no doubt a work-for-hire project, it was most likely a mixture of both, depending on the time of day and the idiosyncratic mood of the writer. Oleck does what he can with what he was given, which was a thin, almost perfunctory script. How much creative leeway on a work-for-hire project like this really depends on whoever or whomever the licensor has overseeing or supervising the project. Some will allow for artistic flourishes and storytelling liberties, while others might want nothing more than an impersonal translation of the material into book form for marketing purposes, because novelizations were nothing more than mass-market press kits meant to sell a movie or a TV show. While the film itself opens with a camera pan across the River Thames on a bright, somewhat smoggy-looking London day, before zooming in on the topmost floors of the Millbank Tower and cutting to an interior shot of Rogers, played by Daniel Massey, pressing a button to summon an elevator. Oleck's approach in the novelization is a tad more ominous and atmospheric. Let me read you the first page. The shadows seemed to Rogers to be somehow threatening. There is a loneliness about a nearly deserted office building at night that is almost otherworldly, and he did not like it. He did not like it at all. It was as if the swarms of secretaries and executives and clerks who were the lifeblood of the building by day had, with their going, left it a corpse. His footsteps echoed eerily along the corridor, and even the harsh glare of the overhead lights seemed unable to dispel the gloom that, here and there, made long fingers of darkness where a nook or a bend in the corridor wall cut off the brilliance. The corridor was unaccountably cold. It had the damp chilliness of a mausoleum. So as he walked on, he pulled the collar of his seedy coat tighter around his throat and mentally damned the engineer who had turned down the building's heating system as soon as the sun set. At the end of the corridor, where several sets of sliding doors indicated that he had at last reached the elevators that were his destination, he jabbed viciously at the down button and then waited irritably. The sooner he was able to leave this hollow, echoing refrigerator, the better. Now, that is a lot more unsettling than a simple daylight pan across the River Thames, right? A couple of other things that I found of interest with this opening. One being just how uncomfortable and unpleasant Rogers is. He really seems to be a miserable person, both inside and outside. I also liked the cryptic foreshadowing of both his state of existence and the events of the story that brought that state about. How the absence of the lifeblood of the building makes it feel like a corpse or a mausoleum. An elevator does arrive, but it offers no respite for Rogers, as his descent to the ground floor is slowed by 4 separate men who enter the elevator from different floors. Rogers observes them with an ill-tempered contempt, not at all present in the film, which, despite the bombastic music playing, is a stationary shot of men standing in an elevator, waiting patiently to get to the ground floor, and studiously avoiding eye contact once the polite acknowledgement of the other's presence has been made. Each man presses the ground floor button, of course, but the elevator does not stop there. It continues down into the depths of the building, stopping and opening its doors at the sub-basement. There they find an elegantly furnished sitting area, which they enter, and the elevator door closes behind them. There's no call button to summon the elevator back, nor is there any other way out of the room. Well, having nothing better to do, they seat themselves, pour some drinks, and make small talk about how this entire situation feels as if it were a vivid dream. Which, of course, is the conversational segue necessary for Rogers to describe a horrible dream that has been haunting his every night. That horrible dream is the story Midnight Mess, which is from Tales from the Crypt, number 35. Rogers has tracked down and dispatched his estranged sister so he can claim the family inheritance. Said sister had taken to living as a recluse in an isolated village, one that shuts down and locks up just before nightfall, because they come out at night. The differences between the film and the novelization are both slight and marked. In the film, Rogers arrives in the town of Waterville, unnamed in the film but named in the book, and right at the doorstep of his missing sister's domicile via a simple edit. Yet Oleck has Rogers take a bus out to Waterville. Also, while the film is coy about the nature of what they are, the novelization is quite upfront about it. which, judging from the panel snippets I had seen when searching out the cover of Tales from the Crypt number 35, seems to be true for the film's source material as well. The novelization then breaks from the film's continuity by having its next story be Bargain in Death, from Tales from the Crypt number 28. Here we have an attempt to cheat an insurance company via a fraudulent life insurance claim that gets good mucked up by a combination of greed and a couple of desperate, yet not too smart medical students. For me, the highlight of this segment was the zoom in on the novelization of Tales from the Crypt, which was also written by Oleck, being read by one of the characters. This does not happen in the novelization, of course. Instead, we get a few additional scenes from the point of view of Maitland's double-crossing partner in crime in his ill-advised endeavor. This is also one of those stories that probably worked best as a comic than it did as a cinematic narrative. Although the shots of the protagonist buried alive inside his coffin are more than capable of giving viewers suffering from claustrophobia a minor panic attack. This Trick'll Kill You, from Tales from the Crypt number 33. A husband-wife magic actor visiting India, specified as Calcutta in the novelization, to see if they can find something to liven up their show. What they find is a rope trick that can be literally breathtaking. Oleck, just as he had done with Rogers, presents Sebastian, this story's viewpoint character, as a grumpy, uncomfortable, and almost unpleasant character. Not that he or his wife are all that nice and pleasant in the film, but Oleck really amps up the palpable contempt Sebastian has for what he sees and experiences in India to an 11 on the misanthropic measuring scale, which seemed to be par for the course for EC Comics. Of the 5 tales in the film, I think this one is probably the most straightforward one-to-one adaptation. It's a great story with a great payoff that, in the film, is marred only by the limitations of the rope effects. Otherwise, it's great stuff. The Neat Job. Shock Suspense Stories number 1. Pritchett is a controlling neat freak that demands his young wife do everything to his satisfaction, which means neat, tidy, and just as he always has done it. There is a place for everything, and everything in its place. Of the stories in this film, I think this one might have taken the most liberties with its source material. Judging from the comic panels from it that I saw while searching out the cover art, the source material is from the viewpoint of Eleanor, and is a flashback as to how Pritchett drove his poor wife to madness by his psychotic fastidiousness. Although the police officers that are questioning Eleanor, and to who she confesses via her story, are absent from the film, Oleck does bring them back to the story's conclusion in the novelization. Oleck, yet again, chooses to amp up the misanthropic cattiness to 11 in the story's opening scene. In the film, it is just a simple expository conversation between Pritchett and a friend, so the viewer can be made to understand Pritchett and Eleanor are newlyweds. But in the novelization, it is a far more unpleasant experience for Pritchett's supposed friend and luncheon partner, who seems to have been summoned just so that Pritchett can boast to somebody about getting married, which is really kind of sad when you think about it. Another interesting flourish or liberty taken by Oleck is having the desperate and eager to please Eleanor attempt to create a piece of modern art sculpture for Pritchett in his workshop, something that he dismisses and destroys with peevish and abusive zeal. The problem here with this story, if one could even call it a problem, is that it is more Eleanor's story than it is Pritchett's, and might have worked better if it had been she who had been telling it at the table, and not Pritchett. So it goes. Only one story remains, and it is a doozy, called Drawn and Quartered, from Tales from the Crypt, number 26. When an impoverished and reclusive artist living in When an impoverished and reclusive artist living in Haiti learns that he has been cheated out of substantial profits from his work, he utilizes voodoo in order to get revenge. Although Tom Baker, who was on the cusp of becoming the Fourth Doctor, delivers an intense and engaging performance as the slighted artist Moore, his performance does not contain the amount of loathsome venom that Oleck saturates the character with in the novelization. Each of these guys were just jerks, which, as I said earlier, vibes more with the overt cartoonish tone of the comics than it does with the more grounded and banal, deep potatoes presentation of the film. As was the case with This Trick'll Kill You, Oleck brings the hot, humid, and heavy atmosphere of Haiti to a sensory life that the set-bound film production was incapable of doing. The movie did a good enough job, but Oleck makes Haiti feel like hell incarnate, which fits with the novel, not Haiti. Apologies to Haitians in Haiti. While this closer's narrative is just as tight as... God, I just flubbed that again. While this closer's narrative is just as tight and focused as This Trick'll Kill You, it is Baker's energetic performance, coupled with the segment being the most atmospheric of the lot, that gets it my vote for the best in show. I think it ends both the movie and it ends the novelization on a strong note. Now, about that ending. A ringing chime alerts the five men that the elevator has returned. The door opens, and here we have one final major divergence from the film. Although both the film and the novelization kicked off with Rogers entering the elevator, and I think I should note, if I have not already, that in both the film and novelization, the men board the elevator in the order of the stories as presented in the novelization, which makes me suspect that they were reordered or reorganized during post-production. Yet in the film, it is Sebastian, the magician from the centerpiece tale This Trick'll Kill You, that observes and narrates the curtain call. But that is not the case in the novelization. It is the character of Pritchett from The Neat Job doing the honors of the departing curtain call, which is just another interesting deviation from the film that geeks like me will find intriguing and amusing. Which is basically my final assessment of this novelization. Intriguing and amusing. While it and its contents might not be the most original or surprising collection of terror tales, I did find it entertaining enough as a time waster for what it was, a relic from a time when books helped market movies drifting from regional release to regional release, and was a pleasant enough reading palate cleanser to enjoy between headier and more complex literary entertainments. Your mileage might vary. And there you have it, my contribution to Horror Mayhem 2026. I hope you enjoyed your time here. Until next time, may your dreams be happy ones.